Thinking about it. Recording, I think. Yeah, YouTube. Didn't hear it say it was recording like it usually says. Oh, trying to figure out what to order for dinner. What kind of
Yeah,
snacks?
have some food.
What kind of tasty
Well,
snacks?
locally. Exactly. See, if I didn't do this,
Try to
come
do it.
out here, then I'd be at
Try to get
home
it
and
done.
somebody had hollered at me to come and help
Oh,
fix
I
it.
get it. I get it
Locally.
completely.
And I would.
No, I'm like, nope, gotta go, bye.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I would push up like a pre-release and, start, po-
Let's share for a minute. Share an application. There it is. Share. How does that look? You all see that?
That's good with us.
that's what this looks for, if the.
I see it.
Okay, good. I'm not going to run it in presentation mode because that takes over my whole screen and just I've only got 7 slides. Yeah, okay. So we know that works. Make it stop. I think Dave said he wasn't going to be here this evening. I believe that's what he said. Uh, Richard the Tech Man.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's to differentiate me from Richard Jackson
yeah,
and and your treasurer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's Mr. Williams. We get started about 6:40. So you got about 8 minutes to hit the restroom or whatever you got to do, or just chat if you want.
Now, finally, I can hear what's going on.
Yeah.
It took him about 10 minutes to get the headphones working.
Really? Hey, James.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay.
A few names I don't recognize. Hey, Joe, how many people you got there with you? 3? Including you?
3, including me.
Cool.
I was hoping for a couple more, but you know how it goes.
We always do.
Hey, Wolf. How are you?
We're not hearing you, Wolf.
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Okay.
There you go.
I'm waiting for food. That's the thing that's managing my life right now.
Hmm. Getting sushi again?
Always. I love me some sushi. The driver just contacted me to tell me he was waiting for the food. And
Yeah.
I wrote back that every driver misses my house the first time. I've never seen him before, so I'm sure he'll miss my house, even though I just gave him advice on how to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they must always think, I won't miss it. Phew.
They
Whoops.
they always do. But I order so much from this restaurant. It's ridiculous. But man, I love sushi.
I don't really know.
Restaurant is it?
What was that?
What restaurant is it?
It is, I live in Ann Arbor, right on the edge of Saline, and it is a sushi restaurant right next to the Saline Imagine Theater called Biwako. And it is fantastic. It's absolutely the best sushi in Saline, and it's probably the best sushi in Ann Arbor.
I'm
Wow,
gonna
that
have to
sounds
try
good.
it.
Yeah, do. We go there every Saturday for lunch.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're a
Yeah.
sushi fan too, Jim?
No, I go for, there's a Korean dish called bulgogi that they have that's really, really good.
Oh,
That's what I get. It's basically just beef and rice. I have them throw a couple of eggs on top. It's yummy.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, Wolf sits across from me eating all kinds of weird stuff. Yeah. Can you track the driver, Wolf?
I am. He's on his way right now.
Oh. So just about the time we start talking, you'll be getting up to answer the door.
If I'm going to talk about death,
Yes.
do you want me to actually use it or just talk about it?
Oh, I would say open a terminal, share a terminal, so we can just try a few things because people, including me, will have things for you to try. And rather than each of us trying to share our screen, we can just have you do it. If that
My
works
food
for
is
you.
here. I'll be right back.
Okay. Now we can talk about it. Although it'll be on the recording, so maybe we shouldn't. We'll give Wolf a chance to get back, then we'll start the meeting.
anybody using Zoom in Linux? Does it work well in Linux?
I use it just fine. I
Yeah.
use the Debian file that they provide.
Okay.
Am I using hold on, I might not be using a Debian file on this, this Nix box that I'm running. I
Hmm.
don't know.
I,
Hold on and let me check.
my,
They
I
probably have
don't know if I'm running that on my Nix box.
and my,
Uh,
my Facebook have the same handle as my, as my, as my GitHub. So,
I don't really use much social media, so.
yeah, I waste a lot of time. So-
no, I am using the Nix packaged, Zoom
Hmm.
Okay.
clients. My Nix laptop.
Has a lot
On
of
my
different
Papa West
things.
laptop, I use the Debian file provided by Zoom.
Okay.
You have to download it every now and again to update it, but other than that, it seems to work fine.
Okay, good. It's good to know.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with it.
I
I haven't tried their RPM, but they provide an RPM too.
I've gotten to the
Okay.
point where.
Cool.
Where I, you know.
And the Nix version, I think, is built from source. It's probably a binary in the Nix package repository,
Yeah,
Mhm.
but it is built from source initially.
I do have
Wow.
to see. That one.
So
I thought maybe they'd have a flat pack or something.
they do. However, my attempts to use the Flatpak didn't succeed quickly, and I gave up and moved
Ah.
on.
Okay.
Jim, what are you running? Are you on Linux with Zoom?
I bought, since I do math tutoring, I bought a Windows 11 laptop. It's a ThinkPad. It's a refurbished.
Oh,
So I'm running Windows 11. I just installed Zoom on it tonight.
seems to be working.
Yep.
All right, Wolf's got his food. I guess we can get started, eh? So
Well, that's my
welcome.
hope.
Yeah, welcome to the May 2025 mug meeting. We're glad to see you. We got some interesting stuff tonight, I think. We're going to start out the presentations. Wolf is going to start us in on talking about the diff utility in Unix/Linux. We're going to spend, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes on that, just showing some of the command options, what it does, explain what it does, that kind of thing. And then we're going to get on to a presentation that I'm going to give on a recent adventure I had in moving from a data center to the cloud, where in the data center I had a bunch of Linux VMs. In the cloud I've got a single VM. So it's kind of an interesting little tale, I think. Maybe you'll learn something. Before we get into that, though, we've got just a little bit of mug business to cover. We've tried to shorten it up quite a bit. We used to run 15 or 20 minutes of mug business. We're trying to shrink that down. I don't see Dave here tonight. He usually talks about membership, becoming a member. So I'll give the abbreviated version of that. You have the opportunity to become a member of Mug. The annual dues are $50, but and we're happy to take it. We got to a point where we don't need a lot of money since we're not meeting in a physical location. Our only real expense is Meetup and Zoom. And a few little tiny expenses. So what we've done is people who sign up to be a member, we're not expiring their membership. We're not having them pay again next year. It's a one-time deal right now. So you pay the $50, you're a member until further notice. It'll be at least a year, probably much longer. And if you want to do that, go to the Mug website. It's mug.org. There's a place there for membership. Dick Williams, who is here today, he's the guy in red waving. He's the one that takes care of the money and that kind of a thing. If you do happen to get a notice that it's time to renew your membership, please ignore that. We've been unable to figure out how to turn that thing off. So people occasionally still get the notice that it's time for them to renew. You don't need to. You're automatically renewed without paying any money. If you do try to renew, I think we're going to refund your money. The only people making money in that case is who are we using for credit cards these days, Dick? PayPal? I think.
That's it.
Yeah.
PayPal
So yeah, if you renew your membership and we refund it, PayPal still gets their money. So don't even bother renewing. So
cash and checks are acceptable.
yeah, cash and checks are also accepted. There's no fee for that, so that's good. Let's talk quickly about other user groups. I know Richard Jackson is here. He's going to give us the 60-second spiel on Semco. Richard, you got your microphone turned on?
Yes, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. Yes, the Southeastern Michigan Computer Group has been around since 1976, and we're meeting in person at I3 Detroit. You can find out where that's at on our website, but we also meet on Zoom. We do both simultaneously. So you can go to our website and join the Zoom meeting, or you can go to our website, find out where I3 Detroit is, and meet there. We meet the second Sunday of each month. The June topic has not been figured out yet, so I can't tell you what it's going to be. But we always have interesting topics. For people that are in the Windows, the one we just finished doing was Microsoft Power Toys. And learn some neat stuff you can get for free just by downloading the Microsoft Power Toys for Microsoft.
Cool. And the website is semco.org.
SEMCO or semco.org.
Great.
Short for the Southeastern Michigan Computer Organization.
Okay, and normally Gib is here to talk about MDlog. I think you can just go to mdlog.org to find out about that. I think they just had their meeting last Saturday. They meet at noon on Saturday, and they're all virtual since Gib is now down in Austin, Texas. It would be too much of a commute for him to come up here to Michigan. So you can check that out at mdlog.org. There's other groups in the area. You can find them on the website. If you go to mug.org, there's a link there for other groups, so you can check that out.
If you're in the mid-Michigan area, in the middle of Michigan,
Yes.
Lansing.codes is where you can find all the stuff near Lansing.
Yeah.
Lansing.codes, that's it.
All right, excellent. Future meetings, we've got a couple of good ones coming up. June 10th, Joe, who was just telling us about the Lansing list, Joe is going to be talking about the $100 home lab. So that should be really interesting, showing us how to set up a lab using Linux and who knows what else to do a lab. And then July 8th, Wolf is going to be talking about the Helix editor. It's an editor he's been using for several months now, and he's basically he really, really likes it because I hear about it all the time how much he likes it. So he's going to be telling us July 8th. So that'll be cool.
You got to mention to him that I've been a Vim user for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it has been my favorite editor for 20 years.
Yeah.
And now Helix has replaced it.
It must be good. But not good enough to get me to switch, right? Believe me, he tries. So I think that's kind of it for the business stuff. So we got those two meetings coming up. I think we're going to jump in. Wolf, are you? I know you're kind of nibbling there, but are you ready to share your screen?
I am ready to go. Did you give permission to share screens?
Probably not. Let me do that. Share. Hang on. Host tools. Allow participants to share screen. Okay. You are now allowed to share it.
All right. I am going to share a window.
Okay.
And in this window, I am going to duplicate and modify a file.
Okay.
So here I have a file. It is called main.rs. And I'm going to duplicate it. So cp main.rs to not main.rs. And right now, these two files are identical. I just used copy. In this tab, I'm going to edit them both. They've got a bunch of Rust in them. I know probably you don't know Rust, and it doesn't matter what's in the files. The exact Unix utility that I'm going to talk about is called diff. Now, diff compares any two text files or any two directories recursively and tells you on a line-by-line basis what's different. So you see right here in the middle, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this one is main.rs, and up at the top it shows what buffers I have open. Main.rs is dark, that's how it shows which one it is. I'll go to the next buffer. Now I'm in not main.rs. So let me do something simple like delete a function, and then I'll write. Now I've got this other tab open. I'm going to cd into the source directory, and you can see I have main and not main. The very simplest use of diff is to say diff, and then what the file used to look like, or whatever file you want to call the left-hand side.
Right, the original file.
Whatever the file looks like now, or the other file you want to compare. And what diff does is it prints out a line-by-line difference. This is the difference that it prints out. It tells you the lines that were originally lines 20 to 23. The D says those lines were deleted, and that spot in the right-hand file is now line 19. And when you actually look at the deleted text, it shows you little less than signs pointing to the file you had on the left-hand side, main.rs. What this little piece of text says is that this is empty function is in the left-hand side, but not the right-hand side. If I switch the order of those two commands, now see it's diff not main is on the left and main is on the right, the opposite. And now it says line 19, I added lines 20 to 23. The arrows point the other direction. And this shows that main.rs has a function is empty that wasn't present in the original. At this point, I want to mention that this diff, the standard diff, is the basis for most of the other diffs that you see anywhere else, and probably the most important diff that you will see anywhere else is in your version control system. So for instance, I use Git, and when I say git diff, diff shows me what is different between what I have in my working directory, so any changes I have made to my code since the last commit. Now, I'm just going to talk about the Unix utility today, but mostly when you encounter diff, it will be in the context of git diff. There's a couple very important options that I want to talk about. And one of them is -u for unified format. I'm going to go up to the previous one where main was on the left and not main was on the right. And I'm going to say -u for unified. And now the output is bigger. It has some context. So 3 lines above that haven't changed, and 3 lines below that have changed. And this says that where you see minuses, that's stuff that is only in main.rs. And when you see pluses, that's stuff that's only in not main.rs. And so here you see minuses. That means this was in main, but it's been removed. I sort of don't understand what these line markers are because they don't make sense to me.
It describes which lines through were minused and plussed. It's a description of the line numbers and how they changed. I don't
It
explain
doesn't
exactly what those
match.
numbers mean, but that's what it's describing.
I believe you.
It doesn't match.
I'm going to show the
Well,
same
It's showing
thing.
context.
If you go into your file and edit something like 30 lines down, you'll see 2 different blocks with those numbers at the top.
And let's
Yeah.
do that. Let's go to line 31. And I will.
Yeah, just change a line instead of actually deleting it, because that's fun too. Yeah.
All right. So I changed main.rs. No, I
No,
changed
you
not
changed
main.
not main. Yeah.
Good. So let me do the exact same comparison again. And now it shows that in not main, I'm missing these lines. I'm missing the cell empty line. And I've got instead the cell digit 3 line. And you can see this number is somehow related to where I made the change. So that's unified. And then I'm going to show it with one more option. -y. And -y shows the
Oh,
files side by side.
that's a neat one.
And not in an editor, not where it would be helpful to you. But like here you can see there's a change. So there's this vertical bar. Because it's side by side like this, the actual text in the file is cut off. And this space in the middle, that is to show you where things are different. This vertical bar means it was a change, and these left angle brackets mean the same thing you saw previously, that this is code that's only in the left side. And to make up for this, it's spread out the stuff in the right-hand side to show there's nothing there now. Even though what is there is gone. That they've closed up. And here's an annoying thing about the not side-by-side form. In the not side-by-side form, when it said what was added and removed, it showed this, the previous curly brace. And so it said essentially that in the new file, the function new ended with this curly brace. That's kind of ridiculous. You really want it to be like it is here, where it showed the actual end closing brace and the actual blank line that followed it. So Y is for side by side. When I think those are the basics. Those are the only things you need to know. I can
like
I can
this,
do
there's also VimDiff that is very much like what you just showed.
There is VimDiff. In fact, I could say VimDiff main.rs, not main.rs. And Vim, I've got Vim set up with various different colors, but you can see here, it's doing the right thing. It's using the correct curly brace, and it's using the correct blank line. You can see there's no line numbers in the spot on the right-hand side. And it fills it in with these dashes. That represents it's just not there. And here it's in yellow or orange maybe, where I've changed cell empty, and it's specifically highlighted the word empty and highlighted digit 3 as that's the actual change. The orange or yellow, whatever it is, color means changed, and then the highlighted part is the actual change. And you see that it's folded up, everything not different, and it's put a little plus next to it. And I can actually hit the plus and unfold it. Or now that it's plus, it turns into a minus and I can refold it. Can I show you anything else?
I think that's good for VimDiff. I've got a few.
I was going to ask you to go back to your Unify format.
Okay.
How about those line number indicators?
So here's unified format, and here's the line number indicators.
Yeah, the minus 17 shows you which line the minus is on, and the plus 17 shows you which line not main.rs is on. And the I believe that the second number is a character position, but I could be wrong about that.
Well, I think it's the number of lines.
I think it's wrong, and here's why. 10 minus 6 is 4, and
that's
4 is the number of lines I deleted.
Yeah.
And if you go down, the 32 and the 28 make sense in relation to the addition of lines.
I
So it
believe
still tells you the line number, but 32 for the main.rs. But
I
it's
just
only
don't
line
know why
28.
this is 7.
That's the number of lines that it's showing.
The number of lines it's showing. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, the
1,
top section is
2,
10 lines.
3, 4, 5,
Thanks,
6, 7, 8. Except maybe minus and plus are the same
Same
line.
line.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all that is.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. I got a couple of options. Well, first of all, diff shows you the difference. There's another corresponding tool that's very handy, and we used to use it way back in the old days before we had these awesome distributed version control systems, and that is Patch.
Oh, Patch. I use
right?
Patch today because sometimes Patch works when git apply doesn't work.
Oh, wow.
I still use
Yeah.
Patch as well.
Yeah.
So the result of a diff is a file that not only shows you what's different, it could be used to take a change that you had made
Yeah.
and apply it to an unchanged file. And that's what
Right.
patch does.
Right,
It's
'cause a
not
long
so
time ago-
important for you yourself, but if I made a change, I could send a patch to Jim and then he
Yeah.
could make the same change.
And that page, that patch that he sends me, or that file that he sends me, is short. It's just the changes with the instructions. So what I would do way back when was the command I would do is diff capital N, then lowercase AUR, and I would do that on a directory or two directories, and it would diff the contents of the two directories, giving me a patch file. I don't remember what the N. I just remember that was what I always had to do. Capital N, lowercase AUR. I'm looking quickly for what the N command does, and I don't see it. Although I'm on Mac, it might be different on Linux. But that would give me a unified patch that I could then send to somebody, and they could run patch on it, and it would apply those changes to their files. And it was very handy. You didn't have to send the whole file. You could easily just show them what changed, and they could use patch to apply it. It was very handy. Of course, now we just do gets, pulls and pushes and pull requests, and that's how we move these patches around. But
interestingly enough, the changes. No, that's not true. I was going to say something that's not true. I'm sorry.
Tell you the reason I still use patch is because we use Git, but have no upstream Git server that is hosting the Git per se. So it is just a Git repo on another machine. And because I don't like merging 4,000 commits that say fixed typo, I do a Git diff, create a new patch file, and then just do a patch apply. And now you don't only have the one commit.
I have two things to say to you. One is Git bundle, and the other doesn't solve your problem, but I'm going to say it anyway. Your problem is too many commits, and you just want the changes. The other thing I'm going to say is that two sibling repos can communicate with each other. You can, it's not your upstream, but you can pull and push changes to it. It's actually kind of annoying to pull and push changes to a non-bare repository. So bundle often is your answer, but probably the thing you are doing now is the best possible way you could solve the problem as you have expressed it.
It is the easiest way for me to solve it.
Anything else?
Okay, so I just looked up the command. Dash capital N says if a file is found in only one directory, that's when you're comparing directories, act as if it was found in the other directory too, but was of 0 size. So it'll show that the file existed in the original, but doesn't exist in the other one, and the dash N would show that, so that in a patch that file would get created. If you didn't do the dash capital N, it wouldn't diff against anything, so your patch wouldn't. I don't think your patch would create the new file, or remove. Your patch wouldn't remove the old file if it ended up 0. The dash A option is treat all files as ASCII. So if there was a binary file in there, it would instead of just printing binary file, it would actually include it in your patch.
Which is weird.
It's weird, but if you're trying to push a patch around, you need that because that binary file has to be part of that patch, even though it's not text. So anyway, that's what I used to do: dash capital N AUR, 2 directory names, and it would give me the difference between them that you could use patch to apply to the second one.
You got to be super careful with those binary files because the patch will have line endings like where it came from. And when patch applies it at the destination, it might end up with the binary files only. It might end up with line endings that match the destination, and that's probably not what you wanted for a binary file. For Jim, this probably never happens because it's from a Unix place to a Unix place.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's something to worry to look out for if you're doing that kind of a thing. So yeah. Anyway, that's the Diff command. Anybody have any questions? No. I don't see anybody. Okay, good. So thanks, Wolf. That was interesting.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So now I'm going to share one of my screens here. See if I can figure out how to do this. So here's the main presentation for today. I'm going to be talking about out of the data center and into the cloud. Everybody see that okay? I've only got a handful of slides. This is really more about showing some visuals, visual aids to help me along. I don't have I don't have like a full presentation, just more of a conversation. I run a small software company, and we write software for doctors. And since 2012, we have been renting a rack in a data center down in Southfield, Michigan. In that rack, we had 3 servers. I mean, it's an awful big rack for just 3 servers. But we had my next slide. I'll go to that slide right away. This is what we had basically in the data center. You guys see that okay?
Yep.
So we had 2 VMware servers and a Linux box running Postgres as our primary database. The VMware servers were both running ESXi, the free version, which is the same as the commercial version. The only thing you didn't have was clustering, so you couldn't do like hot moves of VMs from one server to the other. So we didn't have that because we didn't have a big storage area network for doing that kind of thing, or SAN. We didn't have that. If you're going to run VMware that way, you pretty much need to have a SAN with like fiber channel with very fast stuff, so you can easily move your VMs around. We didn't do that. We just had two VMware servers running. I think we had a total of 27 virtual machines running in those, split amongst the two. And this diagram here, you can see the size of those servers. The 2 VMware servers each had 128 gigs of RAM. One of them had 2.4 terabytes of disk. The other one had 8 terabytes of disk, although it was set up on RAID, so it was something less than that. Anyway, so we had all those. We had a bunch of VMs running. In those VMs, we had 2 customers that we were hosting running there. We had our own corporate website running there. We had a wiki running there. We were using Request Tracker, the RT, the trouble ticket system that was running in a VM. We had a bunch of development virtual machines. We had some just little utility machines for running like SMTP relaying and stuff like that. So in total, we had 27 VMs. We've been running that way since 2012. September 2012, we moved in there because we moved out of we had a real office in Clarkston, and rent was getting too high, so we thought it was much better to just work out of our homes, but we had a data center. So we did that for a long time, since 2012. Back 3 years ago, when it came time to renew our lease on the data center, the prices were going up, and I kind of got tired of being on the hook for all that hardware maintenance. You have 3 servers, and I mean, if you look at my diagram there, I think I had 24 hard disks spinning all the time, 2 power supplies in each server, lots of other things going on. Our own firewall, router, switch, that kind of stuff. I was tired of being on the hook for that. You know, if hard drive failed, I had to go down to the data center and swap the hard drive. Power supply fails, I've got to deal with Dell getting a new power supply, and going down to the data center and plugging that in. Over the years, we only had, I think, one power supply failure and 2 hard disk failures. So it never really took the system down, never, took down production. But there was always that worry that was going to happen. Failures never happen at a convenient time. They happen when they want to happen, when I might be heading out of town or something. So I was always concerned about that. It's a problem. So 3 years ago, when it came time to renew the lease, we just kind of made a decision. Let's renew for a 3-year lease. That'll give us the best rate for the next 3 years. And let's use that 3 years to figure out how we're going to get out of that. We've been using Docker for a while for running Postgres and doing a few odd things. We kind of thought, let's consider moving to a cloud hosted thing, run all of our stuff in Docker containers. And so we took 3 years to kind of iron that out. And it did not take us 3 whole years to do that. Really, we got serious about it last September. Really, moving everything into Docker, figuring out what we could do. And it took us a few months to make everything work. In January, we thought, okay, well, we knew we had to be out by the end of April. That was our deadline. Had to be out of there by the end of April. So in January, we decided to mimic what we were going to go to. We didn't really know how big of a server to spec out at. We chose Azure, by the way, as our cloud service provider. We could have gone with Google Cloud Services. We could have gone with Amazon Web Services, AWS, but I had some experience with Azure. So we thought, let's go the easiest way. Let's go with Azure. We didn't know how big of a server to even build. So in our data center, in one of our VMware servers, I built a small virtual machine. That machine I allocated 4 CPUs to it, 16 gigs of RAM, 70 gigs of disk space, something like that. Our database was still running on our database server. I hadn't moved that anywhere, but I moved all of our services one by one into that 16 gig, 4 CPU VM. And it worked. It worked quite well. We actually moved production into that. I didn't move all 27 VMs because we didn't need most of those. A lot of those things were running like development servers and stuff, and that we were not going to run in the data center anymore or in the cloud. We were going to run our development machines in our own houses. That's where we all work. We work out of our homes, so I didn't have to worry about those. But I did move all of our customer stuff, all of our production stuff into Azure or into a VM running Docker. We got it all set up. Our customers were connecting to the Docker instances now. They didn't even notice the difference. And it turned out that 16 gig 4 CPU VM was way overkill. It was much bigger than we needed. So that kind of gave us a data pointer how big of a server to build in Azure. So we ended up building a machine half that size, a VM with only 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. That's what we set up on Azure. And then for the database, I had been hosting my own Postgres instance in our data center.
Nigga, what?
What's that?
Bro, imagine being in the woods, bro. Nigger.
Yeah, we're gonna get rid of them.
Hell yeah.
They're out of here. Did you guys see that? That was rather annoying.
Yes.
Yeah, the one downside of open forums.
Yep.
Yeah. If it happens again, I'll change it to waiting room. Like maybe
I
I'll do
just
that
want to know
right
what the joke was, you know?
Yeah. They were having fun at our expense, right? Anyway, I've been running my own Postgres instance. We had a server, a 32 gig Dell R730 that was running Postgres. That's all it would. That's all it did. So we ran our own Postgres server, and then I ran replicas in VMware. Like each of the VMware servers had a replica of my database, just as a backup. And then I have a small server here at home where I was also running a replica. So we were just replicating across the internet. I had a VPN between here and the data center. So my database was well protected. Plus, we were backing it up, constantly, saving log files, everything, transaction log files. So it was well backed up, but I was managing it. So in Azure, I decided to let Azure manage the Postgres database. And that meant that they were going to handle replication. And they got a real nice setup for doing that. You just go in and you tell it what size of a database you want. I think I created a 120 gigabyte database, but we don't need a huge database for this. So I created a 120 gig database. I forget the actual specifications on the server. I think it might have been 4 CPUs and 16 gigs of RAM, 32. I don't remember. Anyway, so I let them do it, manage that, and they manage the replication. So one Saturday back, like March 1st, I think, I moved the data into the database. I moved the Docker containers, the Docker configuration over to the Azure virtual machine. Got all the plumbing set up just right, brought it up, and it's been running ever since. So that's just over 2 months, right? 2.5 months. Today's the 13th. Yeah. So it's been running like that for about 2.5 months. And it's been running really, really well. And it turns out that server that I set up, the 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM, is still overkill. I could actually go smaller. The problem with when you set up a VM on Azure, your choices of sizes are, I mean, I got the server that I have with 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. The next one down is half that. So I could go 1 CPU and 4 gigs of RAM. I don't really want to go that small. I think the machine we picked out is a pretty good size. And it turns out that whole configuration, I would have been happy if it didn't cost more to go to the cloud. Like I was worried. I didn't. When you go to the cloud, it's really hard to estimate what it's going to cost you. Nobody can really give you a firm answer on exactly what things are going to cost. You can try to piece it together. You can figure out what a VM costs and what your database is going to cost, but it's still kind of tricky because there's always little hidden costs. Well, it turns out that right now, the difference between our data center configuration and our cloud configuration is we're paying just about half of what we were before. So we cut our costs in half by moving to the cloud. And we're pretty happy with that. I would have been okay if it was the same cost, but I'm pretty happy with the fact that it's half of what we were paying before. I think that's pretty good. Let me show you the next slide here. This is kind of what I have now. This is in the Azure cloud. We got a single Azure VM. It's a 2-core x64 virtual machine with 8 gigs of RAM, 30 gigs of disk, and then the managed Postgres database. I've got a total of 18 Docker containers running on that machine, on that VM. The thing about Docker, if you really want to do it the correct Docker way, is everything you run is a separate container. So like for my customers, I need to run Apache for them. I need to run Node.js for them. I need to run cron to do some cron jobs. I need some printer support. I have all of those running in separate containers. I have some HL7 interfaces. I don't know if you're not in medical, you guys probably don't know what that is, but it's health level 7. That's an interface for sending medical data to like laboratories or transcription systems or other EMR systems. I have those. I have, like, in one case, I have 3 of those interfaces running. So I have 3 containers running because they're all separate. So I've got like 6 or 7 containers running for one client. I've got our customer our corporate website running in a container. I've got our wiki running in a container. I've got our ticket tracking system running in a container. I've got all these containers running, a total of 18 of them, all happily running in a 8 gig 2-core virtual machine, all hitting that database. Any questions yet, you guys?
Yeah, I was wondering, maybe you'll touch on it later, but the issues of data security when using the cloud, especially with healthcare data.
Well, you got to be careful, right? You got to set up your firewall. You know, I think what I like about this security wise is these Docker containers are like jails. You know, if somebody did hack into one of those containers, that's all they would get is that one container. We don't have any data on those systems. The data is all in the database, and that's protected by Azure. We do have a signed HIPAA agreement, what's called a BAA, a Business Associates Agreement, with Microsoft for the Azure stuff that we're doing. So they're protecting our data the same way we would.
I kind of have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
I think you and I have talked in the past, and you said that the agreement you just mentioned,
yeah,
that Google wouldn't give you one.
They will now. They wouldn't. They wouldn't a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they do now. I think all the big providers will do that now. They realize they're missing out on an entire segment. It's important. You have to have a signed BAA, Business Associate Agreement, if you're going to do medical data anywhere. Even really, everybody who works with a medical practice has a BAA between them. It's like the contract that specifies what we're responsible for and what they're responsible for. And it sort of guides how we take care of things. And Microsoft will sign one, or Google will sign one now. This is kind of how we're running right now. We're using HA proxy. I've got one external IP address for the whole thing. We're using HA proxy as our front end to handle our terminating our SSL or HTTPS connections. And then HA proxy has rules to fan the data out, or the HTTP requests out to the appropriate Docker container. And in fact, we could talk about HA proxy all night long. So I think we're going to do a presentation on that sometime in the coming months. I've been using HA proxy for years and years. I think I could sort of explain how it works and stuff. It's really cool. So where was I going? Oh, with HA proxy, then I'm using Let's Encrypt for the SSL certificates, and that's working really well. So I've got multiple domains hosted on this single VM, using HA proxy to figure out where the data goes, using Let's Encrypt for each of those SSL certs to do that, and it's all working really, really well. Let me go to the next slide. I want to show you kind of how the prices break down. I don't want to talk specific prices of each thing, but percentage wise, the biggest thing is our database. You can see that 73% of our cost is that managed Postgres database. The thing about Azure, and same thing with Google, you get on there and you set up, you spec out the size of the server that you want to have. And when you say you want replication, the costs double. Everything about that database exactly doubles in cost because they're running 2 servers for you now to run the database. And I did find out we can actually run more than 1 replica. There's the primary and the replica. I can configure it to run as many replicas as I want, but if I run a server and 2 replicas, it's going to cost me 3 times what a single server costs. So you can see the database is by far the most expensive part. It's 73% of our total cost. The virtual machine is only 21% of our cost. And then all the little things, the virtual network is 3%, the backup, the storage, DNS, that's just a couple of percent. It's really all about that Postgres database. It's working really well and they're managing it for me. So that's a plus. But I've been managing Postgres databases for so long, doing replication. I've given talks for Mug on how to set up Postgres replication, that I'm considering running my own Postgres. And if I did that, what I would do is run Postgres in my Azure VM. I would increase the specs on that VM, probably go to 4 CPUs, 16 gigs of RAM. And I would run Postgres as a container in this virtual machine. Then I would set up a really small VM, probably like 1 CPU, 4 or 8 gigs of RAM. And I would run Postgres there as a replica, so that I am still replicating. I won't run a database if I can't replicate it. And the problem with Azure replicating the database, they're managing the whole thing for me. They won't let me replicate off of that. And what I mean by that, what I always like to do is have multiple replicas of the database, and one of them I will use to get snapshots of the database. So like if I want to do some development or some testing, I can very easily just create a replica and then promote that replica to become a primary database, to be a second database, but it's a snapshot in time of that database of when I made that replica. And that's really handy if you want to do development or testing on real data. Azure won't let me do that because they're managing the whole thing. I can't tap into that and run my own replica of that database. So I'm considering taking over the management of the database. And like I said, I can do that by increasing the specs on this VM and then creating a really small VM to have the replica. But the benefit there is I could run a replica at home. I can connect up to the cloud through a VPN, and I could run my own replica of the database here. And I've got a nice secure system with encrypted disks, and I got a firewall and a VPN connected to the cloud. So I'm not worried about security. So even, it's encrypted disk. So if somebody did break in here and steal the server, they wouldn't get anything because it's very strongly encrypted. But I could run my own replica of that database. I could run multiple replicas of that database. I could even run over on AWS. I can create a small VM over there, and I can run a replica of my Postgres database across the internet from Azure. And I really like that idea because if I ever wanted to move, if Azure ever like totally crapped out, which sometimes they'll go down and they'll go down for hours, but if they ever really pissed me off, I could very, very easily switch to AWS. All of my configuration for all my Docker stuff is in GitHub. In my, it's a private repo, but I've got everything stored in Git. So it would be it'd take me maybe an hour to get up and running on AWS. because it's the same thing. You build a virtual machine, you install a version of Linux on it. I would clone my repo onto that machine. Have to tweak some IP addresses because certainly my IP address at AWS is going to be different than Azure, but I could really quickly bring up my entire environment on AWS. I could do the same thing with Google Cloud Services. I could create a replica over there. If I were replicating my database on AWS, I would be mostly there, right? If I needed to switch to AWS, my data is there. I would increase the size of that machine that's running Postgres so that it can handle the production load, because replicating doesn't take that much. But very quickly, I could be on AWS and I could ditch Azure if I wanted to. I happen to like Azure, so I'm not really looking to do that, but it's nice to have that safety blanket there that I could call on if I needed to. Let me just check my notes here. Let's see. So yeah, March 1st, we went live and we've been running ever since. And we haven't had to reboot anything. We haven't had to restart any containers. In 2.5 months, it's just running and running and running. I did have an annoyance along the way while I was setting this up. This diagram here, it shows I got a VM and I've got a Azure Postgres database. When you set up in the cloud, you pick your region that you want to run in. With Azure, you've got US East and US West, and really they've got data centers all over the world. But we chose US East because that's, we're on the east side of the Mississippi, right? So we chose US East. Turns out that that's in Virginia, not all that close to us, but close enough. We chose US East to build the database, and I wasn't really paying attention. And it created the database in US East 2. They've got 2 regions on the East Coast. So my virtual machine was in US East. My database was in US East 2. I was up and running. We were in production. And it was like, we set it. It was Saturday. It was the day we set it up. And on Sunday, I realized that the performance didn't seem that great for the database. And I looked, and then that's when I realized my database was running in US East 2. My virtual machine was running in US East. The connection, the path to get to the database was not local. It was not in the same data center. It was in the other data center. And I think they're both in Virginia. They're probably both like across the street from each other, but the path that the data was taking was slower. And I tried to create the database in US East. It wouldn't let me. It would only allow me to do it in US East 2. And when I dug into it, they said that they're no longer allowing people to create Postgres databases in US East because they're at capacity. They need to increase their resources there so that I can create it. I filed a ticket to try to do it, and they came back and said, nope, not right now. You can get on a waiting list if you'd like. So the other option was move my VM over to US East 2. So that's what I did. I basically just it's a real easy utility to clone a virtual machine to put it somewhere else, and I chose to migrate that virtual machine over to US East 2. I did that, and my database performance tripled. It was that kind of a difference. So
Jim, I know you can't see the chat, but James asks, what Azure Linux VM image are you using?
It's Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Let's see.
Current is 24.
Yeah, 2404. Because I was doing this in 25. So it's Ubuntu 2404. And I keep it updated. In fact, I've got Azure configured to update it, and Azure is keeping backups for me. It backs up the system many times a day. Does that answer your question, James? I wish I could see the chat, but I can't see it when I'm talking.
Yes, it does.
Good.
And Mac asks, did you consider using Kubernetes since you're primarily working with containers?
Kubernetes would be kind of overkill, but my understanding of Kubernetes is that's great if you want to set up Docker containers that scale. Like if you're going to have hundreds of thousands of users hitting it, connections, and you need that thing to be able to scale up and down easily. We don't have that. We have 40 users hitting the database or hitting the server. So I didn't really need. I've never used Kubernetes, but I didn't think it was something I really needed to dig into. I can handle the Docker stuff pretty easily.
That's cool. Thank you. And this last question around that, I guess the follow up is that now, what do you do for redundancy here? Like if this server dies today, like what do you do?
Well, like I said, I've got all my config in Git. So really, if the server just went down, it would come back up. I've got it configured to come back up automatically. And when it comes back up, all the Docker containers would come back up. So if there was a hiccup and the server rebooted spontaneously, it would just come back up. Users would see, 60 seconds of downtime. Wouldn't be a big deal.
Gotcha.
If they died completely, Azure is taking backups for me, so I could pretty easily spin up a new VM and restore it from the backup, or I could just build my own VM and reinstall just clone my GitHub repo and bring it back up pretty quickly. That help?
Yeah, nope, got it. Thank you.
Sure. So I talked about the annoyance, the fact that it created the Postgres in a different region than my VM. The other annoyance was the fact that I can't replicate I can't create my own replicas of that managed database. So that's why I'm considering taking over that. And if we go back to to this diagram here, my costs are half of what the data center was. Postgres is 73% of that. If I take control of the database away from Azure, that completely eliminates that 73% of my cost. Now the VM cost is going to go up. In fact, it's going to double because the machine that I would spec out would be twice this size. So my virtual machine cost would go up, and I would also create a smaller VM to handle my replication. So my costs are going to go up, but I think I figured out. I did some rough math. I think I could reduce about 35% of my cost. The cost I have now, I could reduce it by about 35% by managing Postgres myself. So I'm probably going to do that.
Yeah. Jim, one of the things that I was fighting with when I was trying to spec this out at one point was trying to determine what my own internal costs are, right? So you have to sort of figure how much you're getting paid per hour and spending that time rather than something else. Can you maybe give us a little highlight on how you did that?
Well, I didn't track my costs for setting all this stuff up. I was going more on the fact that it doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't cost me any time at all to keep it running because it just stays running. So I wasn't worried about that. One of the big costs that I haven't even talked about here is, I'm saving half of what I was spending at the data center. That's not including the hardware cost because that's not zero. I bought machines and put them in the data center, and I paid for service contracts from Dell to, when they expire out of warranty, then I would renew the service contract with Dell because, you buy a new server, you get like 3-year service contract on it. Well, after 3 years, I would pay for a new service contract, and those things are not cheap. The service contracts, if you want one with like 4-hour response time, it can get pretty expensive. So I eliminated all of that cost, and if you take that into consideration, the cost of the hardware, the amount that I was paying every year, I wasn't buying servers every year, but like every 3 years, I'd buy a new server and retire an old one. when you factor all that in, I'm really paying about a third what I used to, because I'm no longer on the hook for the hardware. It's not my hardware anymore to worry about. So I'm paying really about a third what I used to when you factor in the hardware costs, or the lack of hardware costs now. So the cost wise, it's really worth it. It's a small company. I'm not, I'm not moving Ford Motor Company over to the cloud. I'm just moving my small company.
Jim,
does
I
that
have
answer
a
your question? Good. Yeah.
What
Yes,
about
thank you.
what about the Postgres 73% there? What causes that large amount of percentage cost there? Is it the storage of the data or the reliability?
Storage is a good part of it. Just the fact that you have to have a VM, because basically it's kind of priced out as though you pay for a VM to run Postgres, and you pay for the disk space, 120 gigs of disk space, and it's fast disk. I think it's SSD. So you're paying that. So that, and then whatever you calculate out for your cost of that Postgres, if you want to do replication, it doubles. So that's why that cost is so high.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, there's some value to having them manage it. I'm annoyed that I can't get a replica of it myself. I can't, I can't attach another secondary Postgres server to that managed Postgres server to get my own replica. That's the reason I'm considering managing it myself. The fact that it would cost me less to do it, that's an added benefit. That's not really the reason why I would do it. It's really because I want to have my own replicas so I can do my own snapshots of the database.
How many people are you serving?
There's about 40 people using it, so it's not a big, it's not a big system.
So that's the most that you would handle, around 40.
It's about the most that we do handle. There's probably about 50 users that could actually use the system, but some of them are doctors. They use it rarely. Most of the other people, they're billing people and appointment people and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's a medical practice management system.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got 18 Docker containers. Once I had it all figured out, it took me about 6 hours to move everything, to move the data to the, from my data center to the managed database. 6 hours I got done much quicker than I thought I would, and it really worked out well. I mentioned that it's about a third the cost when you factor in all the hardware and service contracts. And we're looking at taking over the management of the database, just because I've done so much Postgres replication that part doesn't scare me at all. The nice thing about when Azure manages the replication for you, if the database failed, they would automatically fail over to the secondary server for the database, and then immediately they'd start building a new replica. Like the current replica would become the primary database server, and then they'd start building a new replica. If I was managing, I would have to do that switch. I would have to do the failover to the secondary server, and then start creating a new one. I don't have that scripted, but it's just a matter of logging in and issuing the commands, and I know those commands really well, so that doesn't bother me. Yeah, so that's I think that's it. I do have a bunch of links for more information. I just got the standard links to Azure, to AWS. We are using Docker. We're using HAProxy. We're using Let's Encrypt. Using those really well. And then finally, this is a chance for me to plug a podcast that Wilf and I are doing now. You can listen to it. We did an audio version of this presentation. It's the second episode of our podcast, so you can search wherever you get your podcasts from and look for Runtime Arguments, and you can get a audio version of this presentation. It's much shorter than what we went through tonight. So More questions?
Real quick question. Are you thinking about automating this? Like maybe using like Terraform or Ansible or something in order to
I probably should. I'm not really thinking about it right now because it's all up and running. I think if I Terraform or Ansible, it would probably give me better protection in case of failure. I could bring up a new one much more quickly. It's not a huge configuration. So I haven't really looked at it. I need to study that more and figure out how to do that.
Cool.
Do you think the costs involved in the hosted Postgres are enough that it would make sense for somebody who hasn't been a Postgres admin for a number of years to do the effort to learn that
Definitely.
and run it
Definitely.
themselves?
If you're not well versed in Postgres replication and setting up Postgres servers, I don't think the cost is all that bad. I've got other reasons why I want to manage the database. In fact, it's been 2.5 months and I still haven't made the switch. It might be a couple of more months before I get around to doing it. But if you're not really comfortable with setting up that, managed Postgres is really a nice way to go. You get it set up. It's not hard to set up. You don't have to do anything really to set up. You just go to the console, the Azure console, and tell it you want a database and give it some parameters, and away you go. Then all you got to do is connect to the database with your application and use it. You don't have to worry about what's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, if you're not well versed in Postgres replication, let them manage it for you. And AWS also has a managed Postgres. Initially, I kind of stayed away from that because I didn't understand. AWS has Aurora and they have RDS for Postgres. And I didn't notice the RDS for Postgres right away. I did notice the Aurora Postgres. And what they say is it's Postgres compatible. And that bothered me. I don't want something that's Postgres compatible. I want real Postgres. I don't know how compatible it is because they've also got, I think they got Aurora MySQL that's MySQL compatible. And I didn't want to mess with that.
We use Aurora MySQL compatible.
Do you?
It works identical to MySQL, but the compatibility part is the underlying storage in the background. It lets you do cool tricks like blue-green deployments. And
really?
Yeah, so you can create a green version of the database, run your updates on it, how it goes, just switch up.
The Aurora Postgres was more expensive than Azure's managed Postgres, so I kind of shied away from it. And then when I went back and looked closer, I found RDS for Postgres, and that's within a few dollars of the same price if you spec out the same kind of server. So I wouldn't have a problem with RDS.
When I do pricing, the one thing you can't forget about cloud is they charge you an arm and a leg to look at your logs, store your logs. And your backups can kind of get out of hand if you don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to.
The way we've got the backups set up, that graph that I showed, their costs, backup is a tiny, it's 1.7% of our cost. So I'm not too worried about that. And the Postgres database is not, the Postgres database backup is not part of that. It's part of that 73%.
Why don't you have logs on here
though? The logs, you're talking about all the system logs?
Yeah, like CloudWatch are probably our most expensive spend.
Yeah, I'm not using that. I really should look at that. I'm storing those. When I did Docker, I mount a Docker volume. I mount a volume under Docker to write the logs, and they're just being managed with LogWatch so that they don't get out of control.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I would
CloudWatch. Yeah,
I would definitely put that caveat that logs can get very, very expensive.
Yeah.
A thing we talked about in the podcast is who is this right for? Who is it wrong for? And how do they know and what should they think about?
Well, it's right for me because the size of my organization, the computing needs that I need. I think if you had a much larger database, a managed database might be beyond what you would want. You might want to run your own on your own hardware. My database, I allocated 120 gigs. In reality, I'm using a third of that. If you needed a whole bunch of VMs, like I was able to use Docker here and run a whole lot of services on a single VM. When you start running more VMs, the cost goes up. Start running a bigger database, the cost goes up. So you really have to look at that to see if it's worth it. What I was happy about though was my costs when I did calculate out the cost, when I looked at the cost of a VM and the cost of the database, by the end of April, I was within a few dollars of where I thought it was going to be. I was really happy about that. I didn't end up getting hit with any surprise costs.
And you said why you chose Azure. It was familiarity. How does somebody who thinks they're going to do this choose the cloud?
Well, if they don't have any experience in it, what I would do is get advice from others. We're fortunate; we've got Mug, right? A bunch of smart guys here. So if I have a question, somebody here has been running on AWS before. Somebody I'm sure has been running on Google Cloud Services. I can ask a question and get help. So it helps to have a mentor. It helps to have somebody or a community of people that can help you figure out what's best for you. There's a ton of books out there. There's videos, there's YouTube videos, there's all kinds of information out there to help you get started on one of these cloud services. I think it really just depends on what you like. If you still think of Microsoft as the evil empire, maybe you want to stay away from them. If you think Google is for you, go with Google Cloud Services. They can all handle this kind of stuff. I'm not doing anything fancy here. All the things that I'm doing here, you can easily do on any of them.
I'm kind of curious. I used to have a Linode node where I ran my own GitLab instance, so I didn't need to use GitHub. Do you think, and you probably haven't looked into this, do you think Linode could have done it for you?
I don't think Linode would handle the Postgres database management. I've not looked at it, but you could easily run Postgres on a Linode VM. If you needed a small setup, you could easily build a VM and run Postgres on that yourself and do it. All right.
Okay, that answers my question.
I don't know anything about the tools that they give you. What kind of control you get over security groups and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm not using Linode now,
right.
But when I did use it, they had templates for what your new instance was going to look like. Mm-hmm. And the templates were combinations of specific Linux distros and applications. Yeah. So like they would have a MySQL one, they would have a Postgres one.
Right. They'd have that, or if you want to run WordPress or whatever, you could very easily install a virtual machine with all that stuff ready to go. And even WordPress, I think, is going to have a database on the back end. I think you can choose Postgres or MySQL. But yeah, I think Linode can handle it. I don't know anything about their tools, what their console looks like, what management console, what it gives you access to. So yeah. A couple of more points I wanted to make. I got some notes here. Let's see.
Just to give you one quick war story about logs and cost.
Yeah.
We had a Docker container that wasn't configured properly. So it was a really noisy Java application that was like, "Hey, I can't connect to this thing," and it just kept complaining.
Uh-huh.
And within 3 weeks, the bill was $7,000 in CloudWatch bills.
Yeah.
So I would recommend after that, we learn, you need to set up a bunch of alarms on the bills, cost management.
Yeah.
You learn the whole cloud alarm system,
Yeah, I do have alarms set up on Azure to warn me, if things get out of hand. And I do, for the first month, I was checking it every day. In fact, I set it up on a Saturday, went into production, and on the Tuesday after that, I got locked out of my Azure account. And I was locked out for 9 days. I could not log into that. I could SSH into my server. In fact, I could SSH into my server, and also, I use the console, the Azure portal, web-based thing to do all this. But I also have the CLI installed. I could still get into the CLI. Like the CLI lets you run basically every command. You could create VMs and create databases and manage everything at the command line. I had that installed, so I could still get in that way, but I could not get into the web portal. So I couldn't look at things like what my costs were doing. I couldn't look at the graph of, how much I was spending so far and what the projected cost was going to be for 9 days. I was on the phone one day with Microsoft. I'll tell you what, if you're going to do this, get a support contract with Microsoft. Because if you don't have a support contract, I didn't have one yet. And I learned my lesson. If you don't have a support contract, trying to get somebody on support, I was on the hold. I keep saying that. I was on hold one day for 7.5 hours. I called in, and I got through to somebody who took what my problem was and said they would have an engineer stay on the line. An engineer will pick up. 7.5 hours.
Oh man!
And at the end of 7.5 hours, I hung up. I still didn't get the answer. And I think that was when I figured, okay, I need to get a support contract. I did that, and it took about 15 minutes to get somebody to help.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we use managed services with AWS, so we've got a ticketing system. We can get people to get on a call with us right away.
I have that now.
Yeah. And then we also have like an account manager person that was able to get me $5,000 refund of that $7,000.
Oh, good.
Exit. Yeah, because I explained to them what happened, and they were like, "Well, we can't get the whole thing, but here's a big substantial piece of it." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Pretty nice.
One thing I'd recommend with the CLI, because it's so powerful, is setting up do the little bit more painful CLI way, which is you require MFA, so you can't just use an access key and a secret key. You have to use you have to request a temporary session, type in your code from your phone, and then you can get credentials that are only good for like 20-30 minutes.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, because people are always hunting credentials somehow.
Yeah.
And when you do it this way, it's just a little bit more complicated enough that even our pen testers sometimes are like, "Hey, how do I authenticate this thing?" I'm like, "Hey, that's awesome."
Yeah. Well, when I got locked out and I finally had to get a support contract, I went for the one that was $100 a month, because that would give me like 1 hour support guarantee or something like that. Because I thought, this is enough. I gotta solve this problem. Then once they solved it, I stopped that support contract and I went for the one that's $19.99 a month, and that still lets me create a ticket and get help. It's better than the free support. It's way better than the free support. So I'm paying like $20 a month for support along with everything else.
So we
you got your hand up?
Yeah. So we had a situation where we wanted to limit the cost because we have like a department fund, right? And we can't exceed that fund. There is no money if we exceed the fund. So we're telling Microsoft, hey, if it gets to the point where we're hitting our limit, cut it off, shut it down. They would refuse. They would not honor that. You cannot get set up where they limit the amount of money that you spend. So we had to set up. Yeah, right. So we had to set up
Yeah.
all the alerts and have some. So you're thinking like the middle of the night, someone decides to run something like a runaway process or something.
Right.
You're out of luck.
Right. Well,
So,
the way
yeah,
I'm set up here, like I'm not, I'm not spinning up VMs when the load gets high, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm not automatically allocating space for my database. So if something goes crazy there and starts filling up the database, it's going to hit that limit and stop. It will not automatically increase the database size. So the only thing I'd have to worry about really is data out of Azure, which hasn't been a problem, and I hope it's not. And that I've got alerts set.
well, another situation, and this is more of a cloud in general kind of thing, but working with Azure specifically, we were building some storage, and there's like a parameter that apparently we didn't know about or something. And because you didn't use that parameter, now all your storage has an issue, and you're not going to know about it for like the first 3 or 4 weeks. And then suddenly you have to rebuild all your storage over again. And so we had this process in place where we, like these young guys, they'd go out to the internet, figure out, okay, how do I do something? And then use that, information from the internet on how to do it. And they kept, doing it this way. Okay, great. So then Microsoft provides this fix without actually telling anyone, right? So we had to go into the help desk and have a problem and, and try to work. And they didn't advance tell anybody how this thing was supposed to work. And so they added a new field to the process and stuff. And our guys didn't notice that because they're using online kind of documentation.
Sure.
And so I was trying to press them with the concept of document your processes and do the same process over and over. And when you learn something new, you can improve the process by changing the document. But they would not get that. They just they could not grasp the concept that you had to be consistent in the way you do things. So I guess one of the things that you do with the cloud is you're dependent on somebody else doing the documentation, somebody else updating the processes, somebody else walking you through when there's a problem, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But
right,
you're working with critical systems or something like that. That's going to be an issue.
Good point.
And one other thing about cloud is AWS in particular is one I've been deep diving on, and when you figure out how they want you to use it, then it's like, how Docker puts like a wrapper around your whole application and everything, and it's a good idea because you can self-contain everything in that one spot.
Sure.
AWS well-architected framework recommends that you do that with your accounts. So what you do is you create what's called control tower, and then you can create sub-accounts underneath it. And then they recommend that you run one particular part of your database would just be running in one account. And then and then you can share that account with another account, and you run your Docker in that other account. And it gives you a way to, if you have an account compromise, it's just that one service.
Isolation. Yeah.
And then you can go to the cost breakdown and see how much that service actually costs, because there's not really a good way to see how much each thing costs on its own.
Yeah.
So I ran into a problem with AWS and sub accounts. So I was, responsible for an account and creating new users in that account. And I wanted to be able to push the responsibility down to the owner of the project, so that the owner of the project then would be responsible for maintaining the user IDs and all that. At the time, I don't think AWS allowed that. I think that's probably been improved on since then. So distributing the ownership of sub accounts. So I don't know if it does that now.
Well,
now
it's
now
constantly
really
evolving.
cool. You build roles, and you don't give any users permissions. You just let them assume a role, and then when they log in, they get a dashboard, and they can pick which account they want to go into, and they can assume a role in that account. And if they don't have permission, then they just can't even get in there.
Okay, but the question is, so you provision someone and give them a role, they have the role of owning that account. Can they then push that down and create a user with a role of owning the account?
Oh, no, because once you go to that method, then it kind of, you're using like identity center instead of
Yeah,
IAM.
yeah.
the
So it's
visual.
basic design of the system. So now I had to go in and do all the user ads for 40 different projects and just headache.
Thanks, Ken. Anybody else have questions? Or anything else you want to talk about? We've got some time here. Just plug that once more. If you're interested in some of the stuff that Wolf and I we meet every Saturday for lunch. We talk about all kinds of neat things. So we decided let's make a podcast about it.
Is it audio only, or do you do videos
yeah,
too?
it's just audio.
Okay.
Our first episode was on passkeys. If you're interested in using passkeys, Wolf did a great job in kind of describing what they are and how to use them. And we've got one coming up on crypto. We'll be talking about crypto mining and various things. It's only 30 to 40 minutes long, so we're not going to get in real depth on anything, but it's just kind of a high level view if you're
All right.
yeah, wherever, if Apple or
all right.
Yeah, wherever, if Apple or Spotify or let's see, we didn't choose to do YouTube podcasts because they have all kinds of weird licensing things. If we ever started doing advertising, they don't like that. They want to do the advertising. But really, wherever you get your podcast from, you should be able to find us.
Player.fm.
What's that?
I see it under player.fm.
Yeah. We're using Buzzsprout as our podcast hosting, and they will send information out to all the podcast people, all the podcast directories. That's it. So yeah,
Conversations about technology between two friends who disagree on plenty and agree on plenty more.
Yeah, it's pretty much what it is. So we should have a new episode out this Saturday on crypto. Every 2 weeks. Anyway, I think that's the presentation. Let me stop sharing, and then we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Oh man, look at all these chat messages.
So now I'm looking for podcast solutions. I'm using podcasts on my cell phone exclusively. And so I'm looking for maybe a Windows-based one that, so I'm sitting here at home, I can try some of this out.
You can, let's see, I can get you somewhere here. I can get you the RSS feed. Wolf, where do we get that? The RSS link?
It is available on the Buzzsprout site when you log into the account.
Yeah, I'm at the homepage.
I don't know exactly where it is, but I might have it. Might have it somewhere.
I love it. You start off with episode 0.
Yeah. Well, we're computer guys. Of course we do. I don't know where that's at. There is an RSS URL. There's a URL that you can feed into your podcast player, or you can just hit it from a website.
I'm going to paste something that I think is the RSS feed?
Yeah.
No,
Somebody wants to hit that with a web browser?
it is not the RSS feed. I'm sorry.
Okay. I know I had it once.
I think I found it.
Paste
Did
it.
you?
Is RSS still a thing?
It
is for
is.
podcasts. Oh, is
It's
it?
the
Okay.
basis
It is
of all
definitely for
podcasts.
Oh, is it? Okay. So when you use a
There we
player on your phone, it probably accesses a
Behind the scenes, there's a
Yeah.
RSS.
That is what it's using to figure out what the latest episode is.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And if you like, if we give you this RSS feed, this RSS URL, you can paste that usually into your podcast player. If you don't have Apple Podcasts or Spotify or one, if you can't find it listed, you can use this link and subscribe to our podcast that way.
Okay.
I'm not seeing a link yet.
There was, well, what Wolf was going to paste turned out not to be it.
Let me go to Apple Podcasts, the
Maybe it's
directory, and see if they have it there.
Okay.
Yeah, Grok can't find you.
These are luxuries you don't have to pay for. You're exceptional by design. Get 0.9% APR.
Yeah, I know it's out here somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the search. I found it in the search.
Did you? In the search of what? Apple Podcasts?
Maybe I didn't. I'm at the site in Apple Podcasts.
Well, if you can't find it, people you want to watch it are going to have trouble finding it too.
Well, you can find it if you're using Apple Podcasts. You can easily find it. If you're using Spotify, you can easily find it. Most of the other
So
directions.
that's the Apple Podcasts link, but it is not the RSS feed.
Right.
I think I found it in chat.
Oh
Take a
yeah,
look at
feeds.buzz. Yeah. Yeah, that looks like it.
It does look like it.
Oh, under directories.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is the RSS feed because that's
I've
what I've
found
got
it.
my podcaster.
Under directories, under RSS feed. Here it is. Yeah, is it ending 80? Yeah, that's it. What Richard pasted is the correct one. Yeah. So if you just click that, it should bring up a player on in your browser. It should start playing it. Or if you have a favorite podcast player like Overcast, you can paste it into Overcast.
I just searched
Get a
for
podcast 2.0 app.
I
I'm
searched
just kidding.
for,
I use Podcast Addict myself.
Search for what, Jim?
runtime
Podcast
arguments
2.0.
on Castbox, and it worked. There it is.
Oh, good. Well, there you go.
And I'm going to save
So
it.
tomorrow when we look at the stats, we're gonna see a bunch of new subscribers, right?
Yep. I just subscribed now.
Cool.
I'm going to drop off. We'll talk to everybody next month.
All right.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
With respect to the podcast, we love feedback.
Yes.
If you have things to say, tell us. The podcast show notes explain how to reach us. But you probably already know if you're here.
Yeah, you know how to reach us. Yeah, we've only done 2 episodes so far, so we're still very, very green at it. We're looking for suggestions, and if you have topics too, we'll be happy to entertain whatever topics you can come up with. So yeah.
Is
And
it
I think
a,
that's it for me.
is it a
You got
monthly
enough?
program?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is take turns. Every 2 weeks, one of us is on the hook for the episode. So Wolf is on the hook this Saturday, and then in 2 weeks, well, yeah, in 2 weeks we'll record another one. Well, yeah, in 2 weeks we'll release another one, and I'm going to be doing WebAssembly. I don't know if any of you guys are interested in WebAssembly, but that's what our next one is going to be, because it's something I knew nothing about, and I'm learning. So what we're going to try to do, sometimes it'll be things that we're very familiar with, like the last episode we did was about this transition to the cloud. Other times it'll be things that we research and then talk about because we're interested in it. So that's what's Wolf has been researching the crypto mining stuff.
But yeah, the where the money comes from and goes, who gets
Yeah.
paid at each stage of,
Yes.
of the life cycle of crypto. And our
Yeah.
first episode, episode 0, was also a lot of research.
Yes.
And that was about passkeys.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really interesting.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, well, even the crypto thing, we sat at lunch one day. Dave Satwis was with us, and each of us had our own idea of what crypto was. And it turns out we were all a little bit wrong and all a little bit right. So Wolf is trying to pull all that together to figure out what it is.
And it's challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So
See you guys
did
later.
Okay, take
See you
care.
later, Wolf.
Good to talk to you. So you're gonna get into like setting up a wallet and that type of thing, or just the mining part?
Just a little bit. He'll in 30 or 40 minutes, we can't get too deep into it, but he will be discussing what a wallet is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you also possibly cover things like misinformation and disinformation about crypto?
Oh, maybe we're more interested in the real technical stuff, the nuts and bolts of things. But if there's interest in that, we might talk about it.
Yeah, because I'm sure many of us have come across a lot of crypto related content out there.
Specifically about crypto. Yeah. Well,
And,
we all had our own. We had our own misinformation about it. Each of the three of us. So we're trying to straighten that out.
Yeah, that
Also-
would be probably a good topic about the
Yeah.
disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah.
Well, if you're taking suggestions or, my own thing is I'd like to learn a little bit about a way to play with it without actually having any risk.
Sure.
So
Sure.
how's a low risk way, of playing?
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. It's
Yeah, I don't want the
Wolf says
IRS
that-
coming to my house, right?
no.
Because they don't even
No.
have badges anymore at this point, I guess.
Yeah, right. They just have face masks. Like Wolf has said, the number one use for crypto is ransomware, getting paid. Right. Can you still buy a car with crypto with Bitcoin? I know you could at some point.
Well, I've seen these things like at gas stations where you can buy crypto. I don't know.
Well, you can
I've
buy the
never tried
crypto,
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because you need that because somebody has incriminated evidence from hacking your computer, and they want ransom money to destroy it. So they tell you to go get some Bitcoin.
I read I think it was a New York Times article about that. The crypto ATMs at gas stations.
Yeah.
And you can buy crypto, but you can't sell it back at those machines.
Yeah, you need what do you got to go through an exchange or something to do that?
I suppose so. I've never worked with crypto at all, so I'm not sure. But
I never have either.
Yeah,
I'm
also-
I'm interested in the computing part of it. What is crypto
Yeah.
mining?
Yeah, well, so in terms of the, you have an exchange, and the exchange has all kinds of rules, and they differ. So you might want to
Sure.
research that if you're gonna put create a wallet somewhere and have it exchanged. So I found that I
Right.
created some money and I couldn't pull it out. It was like it wasn't, set up in a way that they liked or whatever. So you have like minimums and stuff like that. So you
Sure.
gotta be aware of that.
Yeah, and your little Raspberry Pis mining crypto are hard to compete against the big guys,
Yeah, that would take a very long time.
or a lot of luck.
Oh, is it a random thing?
Well, it's whoever solves. I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But my understanding is whoever solves some mathematical problem first
Hmm.
gets
Yeah.
the reward.
Hmm.
Right,
And
so that's Bitcoin itself. There is
Yeah.
other cryptocurrencies with different rules.
okay,
So there's one, I can't remember, Monero. So Monero was unique in that the logs are encrypted. With Bitcoin, all the distributed logs in the whatever they call that thing is
the blockchain.
the blockchain is
Yeah.
open, so everybody can
Yeah.
see it and verify and that type. With
Right.
Monero, it's encrypted, and so there's a different set of rules, and I think Monero for me was a little bit easier. It didn't have some of those same problems that you were just talking about. Whatever you were just talking about.
Yeah, I, I'm interested in the blockchain, what it is, because a lot of people talk about it, they don't have a clue what it is, and
Right.
I conceptually I kind of know what it is, but I want to learn more about it.
Well, the other thing you just sort of tripped over was proof of work is another
Yeah.
concept. So the
Yeah.
idea that you're creating, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin is set up so there's a limited number of them available and everybody's competing with the same ones. But other
Right.
things, I think like Monero does this, it's proof of work. So how many times did you iterate and CPU cycle through the logic, and then you get certain credit for doing that?
Okay.
So even a Raspberry
Again.
Pi can get something. Get my 2 cents
Yeah.
worth,
Can you actually get 2 cents worth?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was running it through and like figuring out how much I was making per day, and
Yeah.
So this Raspberry Pi makes a penny, and this one makes a penny, and that type
Really?
of thing. Yeah. Meanwhile, the wife says, "Hey, why is the electric bill $70 is more than usual this month?" Oh, okay.
It's hard to imagine. How many did you have running?
Yeah. Well, so I also had a couple desktops, but I think I
Okay.
had like 6 Raspberry Pis and
Wow.
a couple desktops and like that.
But those things are, it's hard to imagine those chewing up much electricity at all.
Well, right, and that's what I was saying. Okay, I have a solar panel. I could have hooked that up
There you
and try it. Just can I get it for free, right? That type of
Sure.
thing. And with
Sure.
one panel, I could probably run all 6 of my Raspberry Pis.
Oh. Carbon neutral.
Yeah. So if you find out I'm a billionaire one of these days,
Sure. It's because your Raspberry Pi is paid off.
right?
What are Gib? Are they Raspberry Pi 4s or 5s?
No, I haven't. Well, because the prices jumped real high at one point.
Hmm.
So I was Raspberry Pi 3B or
Okay.
3B plus or something like that.
Yeah.
I tried it on like a 0. Don't try it on a 0.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Right.
not even worth trying this time on that. But
Yeah.
the B3 was a pretty decent kind of thing. I mean, but with a Monero, so you have a low,
Yeah.
it's CPU based. It's not the GPUs. So with my GPU, I could probably get a lot more. So my current laptop, which is like 10 years newer than other stuff that I was using at the time, my GPU is a NVIDIA 470 or something like that. That would probably cut through pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
So you have to, so it got to the point where you had, here's the list of GPUs and how much money you'd make with each one of them. And so you go out to the market to try to buy one of those GPUs, and it was priced just about even with how much you
Ah,
make. You know, the market just went
Oh.
right up, brought up the prices on those GPUs right to what you would make with it, you know.
Yeah.
Good old enterprise kind of, you know, approach to
Hmm.
capitalism.
Well, there was something just like a week ago that said the cost of mining a whole Bitcoin is about $135,000.
Ooh.
And at the time, I don't know what it's worth today, but it was something just shy of $100,000. So it costs you $135,000 to mine $100 worth of Bitcoin.
I think it's at 103,000 right now.
103?
Yep.
So you're still nowhere near 135.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I costed out what it would cost to take like solar panels and all that type of thing. I was thinking I'll buy some land, I'll put some solar panels on it, I'll build a shack,
Sure.
I'll put computers in
Sure.
it and all that stuff. But yeah, you really needed to have those GPUs right. And at that point, it was
in the data center where I was, at one point, all of the racks were full, and there was hundreds of racks in that data center. All of the racks were full, and a whole bunch of them were Bitcoin mining systems.
yeah.
Somebody
right,
that was with me understood, what they were.
Well, I remember
And
one time
now those things are all empty.
we had a meeting with like well, like a director level at Ford, who was building out the new data centers. These are, tens of thousands of server type data centers, and we're building like 2 of them. And, so he's saying, we're building this out, here's the plan, all that type of thing. And someone says, well, can we run cryptocurrency, mining on those things?
Right.
Everybody kind of laughed, but I thought for just a moment, well, some of those are going to be idle for a while. So, someone really, and, Ford has these big solar panels out in their headquarters, the parking lot there, But I found out that we were making $62,000 a month on those solar panels. In terms of it was really good.
Generating them that much electricity.
But it's like it's already been allocated to, budgeted into something else. So you'd be basically still spending the money if you did that,
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. No free lunch.
No, not this time. Anyway, what is it, 8:35? I need to get running. And if I do, I think it's gonna drop the call for everybody.
All right, Jim.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Jim, when is the home lab session?
June. Let's see. I wrote it down. June 10th is the $100 home lab.
Awesome. Well, see you next month.
Yeah, we'll see you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for your presentation, Jim.
Thank you. It was kind of fun. I like this stuff. All right. Well, it was good to see you guys. And we'll see you again in another month. And in the meantime, listen to our podcast.
Okay.
That's
All
good.
right. See you. Bye.
Bye.